Hello and welcome back to the OSM channel. In today's video, I'd like to teach you how to use a fire extinguisher. But I'd like to cover much more than that. So in today's video, I'm going to cover 4 principles. The 4 principles we're going to cover are: when is it appropriate to use a fire extinguisher? What are the main types of fire? What are the main types of fire extinguishers? And then finally, how do you actually use a fire extinguisher, which is probably the main reason you clicked on this video. So in today's video, I will be setting up a very small cardboard box fire, and we're going to extinguish that with this water can at the end of this video, so stay tuned for that. But the first question that we need to answer: when is it appropriate to use a fire extinguisher? So we need to analyze a few things. We need to analyze what is the risk versus reward. Now, I was a volunteer fireman for 10 years, and pulling up to every emergency situation, I try to analyze what the risk versus reward is of my actions. So if there's an outside fire, you have a fire extinguisher nearby, and there's very little risk of any harm becoming of you, absolutely go for it. But if you're in a situation where you feel like if you try to enter the building and extinguish the fire, you may be engulfed by smoke and you may fall yourself, in a situation like that, take deep and careful consideration whether it's worth the risk going inside to try and extinguish that fire. Sometimes these things are definitely best left for the professional firefighters, so always keep that in the back of your mind. Now, the next thing we need to cover are what are the different types of fire. So we have Class A fire, which Class A fires are ordinary combustible materials such as wood, cloth, paper, things of that nature. Then we move on to Class B fires. Class B fires are liquid fires, so like a gasoline fire, oil fire, something of that nature, like diesel, oil, something like that. And we move on to Class C. Class C fires are charged electrical fires. So if a transmission line falls down in the woods and it creates a fire due to arcing, that's what we would call a Class C fire, a charged electrical fire. Then we move on to Class D. Class D are flammable metal fires. So like, I don't know if you remember back in high school, science class, the professor may have ignited a piece of magnesium and it burned really bright and really hot. That's a Class D fire, so a metal fire. And then finally, we have a Class K fire, which Class K fire is a kitchen fire. So in that case, we're talking about vegetable oils, animal fats, things of that nature. Now that we've discussed the different types of fire, it's important that we discuss what types of fire extinguishers you can use on different types of fire. So if we look at this water can right here, it has an A stamped on the front of the extinguisher, and all these extinguishers will have letters indicating what type of fire they can extinguish. So again, going back to the water can here, we have an A on the front and it says ordinary combustibles. So this water can is appropriate to use on ordinary combustible fires, so like wood fires, paper, just ordinary combustible materials. But if we get into a situation where we have like a gasoline fire or a charged electrical fire, then we're not going to want to use the water can, because a water can on an oil fire will make things much worse. It could cause splatter. Definitely don't do that. And the danger with a charged electrical fire is this could create a path of least resistance between the charged electrical fire to you, and you could potentially be electrocuted. So really, when it comes to electrical fires, it's best not to touch them until the lines are de-energized anyway. But if we take a look at this fire extinguisher here, this is an ABC dry chem fire extinguisher. So on the inside of this extinguisher, there's like this fine powder, and that works to suffocate the fire. But if we take a look right here, see that label? It says A, B, and C. So that can be used on Class A fires, ordinary combustibles, B, liquids fires, and C, charged electrical fires, which again, try and de-energize the electrical situation before you attempt to extinguish it. But it's really important that you use the appropriate fire extinguisher for the appropriate type of fire. Now, metal fires, I only experienced one metal fire in which we had to utilize a special Class D metal fire extinguisher on the fire truck in my 10 years, so those are pretty rare, but they do happen. I'd say the fire that's most common, something that you really need to prepare for, is a kitchen fire, right? So like if a kitchen pan catches on fire, the oils and fats are on fire, try and train yourself for that situation. The best thing to do is to take a damp cloth and cover the pot and try and suffocate the fire. But also, you should keep on hand a special Class K fire extinguisher somewhere in your kitchen so you're prepared for that situation. So now that you have a basic understanding of the different types of fire and you have a basic understanding of how to use the appropriate fire extinguisher, without further ado, let's light some cardboard on fire. We'll create a Class A fire. We'll utilize this Class A water fire extinguisher. Before we get into things here, I will mention that it recently rained, so the ground is wet. Nothing else is going to catch on fire here. Second thing I want to discuss is how far away do you stand from the fire? That depends on a lot of things, but ultimately it's really going to depend on the size of the fire. So if you have a small fire, 8, 10, 15 feet away is probably a good spot to start. If it's a large fire, you probably want to stand further away than that. With this water can, this will shoot a stream probably 25, 30 feet away from the can for a short while. So stand the appropriate distance away from the fire. Now I want to teach you an important acronym, and this acronym is important because it's going to help you to remember how to operate this fire extinguisher properly. So the acronym is PASS, P-A-S-S. So the first thing we're going to do is pull the pin, then we're going to aim, we're going to squeeze the handle, and then we're going to sweep the nozzle back and forth. A few other important notes about this water can. This handle, you can squeeze it down a little bit and create a smaller stream, or you can squeeze this handle down all the way and create a full pressured stream. And the other important tip I have is with the nozzle. So this is currently a smooth bore. It'll shoot a straight stream. If you want to feather out that water pattern, if you want to spread that out, like if you're trying to control a brush line or something like that, what you can do with a water can, take your thumb, put it over the tip of the nozzle, just like you would with a hose, and that'll create a nice fanned out pattern. So without further ado, let's light this on fire. Second. Alright, so we have a nice little fire going. What are we going to do? Well, we're in a safe situation as to where we think we can help put out this fire. So we're going to go ahead and utilize a Class A fire extinguisher because we have a Class A fire. So remembering the acronym PASS, I'm going to pull the pin, I'm going to aim, I'm going to squeeze, and I'm going to sweep back and forth. As the fire gets smaller, you can get a little bit closer to it, and you can put your thumb over the end of the nozzle and create kind of like a wire spray pattern. And effectively put out a fire. Now, just to show you how far this thing can shoot, if you take a look at that tree up there, that tree is probably about 25 feet away. I'm going to try and hit it. You can see we're actually getting the base of that tree a little bit wet. Now, you're not going to be able to maintain that stream for very long, but just goes to show you that you can stand back pretty far away from the fire and you can still get some water on the fire with a water can. So some closing thoughts here. If you're still uneasy about actually using a fire extinguisher, I'd recommend you contacting your local fire department. Tell them, hey, I'd like to learn how to use a fire extinguisher. Could I come down and maybe you could teach me? I tell you, probably 99% of the time they'll invite you down, welcome you with open arms, and teach you, your family, anybody else how to use one of these fire extinguishers, because ultimately their goal, just like the rest of us, is fire safety and ensuring that you're prepared for emergency incidents. Aside from that, remember, are you in a position to help out? What is the type of fire? Do you have the appropriate fire extinguisher to use for that type of fire? Finally, remember PASS, pull, aim, squeeze, and sweep. That's it for today's video. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one.